I always advise people to do that if you can. CASPA, whew, I remember I would come
A
home
lot.
from a day in clinic and I would just say, okay, 20 minutes of CASPA, even if it's reading what's your name, what's your address, it's just getting something done.
Yeah.
Because if I had to sit and tackle it in a couple days, maybe even a week, I don't know if I could have done that. It just took too much brain power. So I would say spread it out if you can.
I was looking at TikTok. Was today your first day of work though?
Today was. And it's perfect timing, honestly, because
Oh
I
my
feel like it'd
goodness.
be good to just talk to you and recap. And
I would love to hear about your first day, like in the
yeah,
real world.
it doesn't feel real. And I know a lot of people can relate to that or will relate to that. I just graduated and I'm pinching myself, something's going to change, but I am someone that can't really sit still. So I wanted to just start working as soon as I could. I moved to a new city, started a new chapter, and I gave myself a couple of days and I was getting antsy already. So I think for someone with my personality, it was perfect. Today, it was a lot of onboarding, easing you in. So it wasn't anything too crazy, not seeing patients just yet. But it still doesn't feel real. They had my little business cards and everything. And I was like,
Yes.
what?
Yes, very official, very official. Do you have your white coat yet? Your long
So I do
white
have my
coat.
long white coat,
Okay.
and my school did a short white coat ceremony in the beginning of didactic, and then they did the long one at the end of clinicals, which was a full
Oh,
circle moment. It was really
yeah,
nice.
that's nice. That's really nice. Full disclosure, I don't even wear a white coat in clinic.
We
I
don't
mean,
either.
y'all don't either? Okay.
But we did the
Yeah.
ceremony when I was still back home in Miami,
Yeah.
which was nice.
My old office, everyone did, and I wore one there, which it's great. I love the pockets, love being warm.
Yep,
At my office now, we're just so laid back. Everybody just wears like scrub jackets, but it is still a symbol and a big deal and
absolutely.
all of that. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found out about the PA profession and
Sure.
decided to
So
take the steps.
I grew up in Miami, Florida. I had experiences in the healthcare world. I had injured my knee at some point, so I found interest in it being the patient first. And I feel like a lot of people can resonate with that just because when you're in high school, you don't really know what career paths there are. You hear, okay, pre med if you're interested in medicine, but you're not really understanding what's happening. I really fell into loving the PA profession when I started shadowing some PAs. I knew I always wanted to work in a field, no matter what it was, that was team based. So I found the two loves of something medicine, something teamwork, and PA just fit that perfectly for me. I went to Wake Forest in North Carolina and I was on the dance team there, and that's when I was injured. So I took a whole year off of dance and I had to rehab, do all that stuff at school. And it was a blessing and a curse. I was sad, of course, but then it also gave me time to get some hours and do research and figure out what I wanted to do on my breaks from school. I was a medical scribe, I worked in a research lab, I did a bunch of different things, and I loved them all. I took my gap year and I worked as a scribe in an ENT office. Currently, I just took a job in ENT, so another full
There we
circle
go.
moment. I just really enjoyed the gap year of being a scribe, and it was a similar lifestyle in my mind, at least. Show up to the clinic, I have to pre-chart, I'm engaging with all my coworkers, engaging with patients every day. So that's how I fell into that exact area.
That's nice that you were able to get that experience and go ahead and start. Did you want to take a gap year or were you thinking, let's just go for it?
I was kind of like, I want to go straight through. I don't want to take a gap year. I'm on the school roll. But as I got closer, I realized, wow, PA schools really require hours. And I didn't have the time. I was on a team. I was trying to do well in school, trying to have the well balanced everything. So taking the gap year, from my perspective at least, was really beneficial for me because it gave me a second to slow down, not put so much stress on myself, and just have fun, get some experience and no pressure for that point.
So you decided to take a gap year and then apply. Most of the time when you take a gap year, you're actually applying during that year. There's like this debate of like, is that a gap year? And it is, but it's weird because you are involved in the process at the same time.
Exactly.
So is that how you did it?
Yes.
So,
Gap year, for me, it was 1 year off of school. But just like you said, I started getting things together, figuring out what the heck CASPA is, figuring out Casper, all these things right after I graduated college. So I graduated May 2020 and I found two gap year jobs around that time, settled into an apartment for the summer, and started compiling everything for my application June, July, and submitted it that August.
okay.
Now looking back on it, I probably started the process before graduating. So I get when people say it's not really a gap year because you're already starting on everything. So that's how I did it.
What were you looking for in a program? What were your kind of top priorities? How'd you narrow it down?
My program specifically, one of the perks was I was able to live at home. As we know, PA school is tough. So just having that support system was something I really wanted. So going back home was definitely on the high list for me. Money wise, as simple as it sounds, just to save up, having to come home. And I'm so blessed to have parents that had food on the table for me when I got home. So one less thing to think about. A little bit more comfort when you're there. I could hang out with my family on the weekends. And then on the flip side, it's you're so busy that you have to say no to things a lot of the time. So I kind of sat my family down and said, I love you all so much, but you might not be seeing me for the next 27 months. And my program specifically had an awesome outreach program. So during the second part of didactic, you get paired up with other clinical medical students. So we had a PA student, a med student, a social work student, a nursing student, and then a doctor PA that was in charge of our group. And we had a patient that we all saw together. So it was awesome to collaborate before clinicals to get an idea of how you interact with different people in the field. So that was another perk of my program.
That is really cool. How many schools did you apply to?
I only applied to four. I always tell people I applied right when COVID was happening. So it was a little bit of a weird
Yeah.
year and I didn't know if I was going to get in. So I just did four. Looking back when I applied to colleges, I applied to more places. So some people say, oh, four is not that many. Some people say it's more than enough. Depends on who you are. I applied to two in Florida and two in North Carolina because that's where I'd gone to college. And
Okay.
then I heard from the one that I went to and went with that.
I lived at home during PA school too. And it's interesting because I feel like some people choose purposely to not live at home or
Yes.
near, and that's totally fine. But for me, it was very helpful to have my parents. They were very supportive. I don't know that I even appreciated it as much
In the moment.
then, yeah, in the moment, but like now, I am very appreciative of it. Thinking back on your PA school application process, is there anything you would have done differently?
Whenever someone asks me that, I pause and I'm always thinking, I don't know because I took my time. And
Yeah,
I always advise people to do that if you can. CASPA, whew, I remember I would come
it's a
home
lot.
from a day in clinic and I would just say, okay, 20 minutes of CASPA, even if it's reading, what's your name? What's your address? It's just getting something done.
Yeah.
Because if I had to sit and tackle it in a couple days, maybe even a week, I don't know if I could have done that. It just took too much brain power. So I would say spread it out if you can. I also tell people do any essays that are there because it allows you to show your voice. You can express yourself in different ways, even if it says optional. It can't really hurt you. I'm not on the read the application side of things, so I truly don't know, but maybe applying earlier would have changed something right when it
Yeah.
opens. I hear maybe applying around April when it opens could be better. I applied, quote, later.
There's something to be said for taking your time. And if that's taking a gap year, making sure that you're doing everything you can to be as well rounded or ready, have that more complete application when you do submit. Getting in early is also important, but sometimes that leads to a rush, which can
Right.
cause errors and mistakes. And I see it every single year.
That's
I
what I did.
definitely have people who want to submit CASPA the first day it opens. I'm like, please don't. Let's not do that.
Yeah, you're
Like,
not ready.
let's take a couple of days. You do not have to submit day one, 100%.
No.
How was PA school?
Ah!
Loved it,
Whew.
hated it, survived.
Survived.
Yeah.
A mix of both. I'll start with the bad parts first, I guess. It's
Okay.
always good to end on a good note.
Yeah.
Didactic was tough.
It's hard.
I think it takes a special kind of person. You get in, you're excited, I'm meeting so many new people, oh my goodness, and then you're hit with multiple tests in a week, and your way of studying, your way of life changes for a year. That's what I'll say, to put it lightly. But it's doable. You make it out. And once you're out, it's awesome. I loved clinical year. I think back to it. I had so much fun. You're meeting so many new people, learning different skills, pushing yourself, and you really come into your own and find confidence in being a PA. It's the weirdest thing. I had a click moment. I think it was rotation 4 during my emergency medicine rotation. Something happened where I was like, "Whoa, this is cool."
Yep.
It's really tough in the beginning, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel and it makes it all worth it.
You kind of go into it with this imposter syndrome of who is letting me do this?
I
Why
still
did
have my
they say that I can go see patients? I think for me it was my peds rotation, which was my third one, where I had a preceptor who was fantastic. And a lot of people in my program were scared of him. I remember he would every day ask me questions, and I was so nervous that sometimes I thought I knew the answer, but I like was scared to say it in case I was wrong. And he could
Mhm.
tell. And so one day he looked at me and he was like, "You know these answers, so why aren't you saying them?" I was like, he just called me out, and not in a mean way, but in a way of, I'm confident you know this, so why aren't you? And I really appreciated that because I feel like that for me clicked it to like, let me just be confident in what I know. And if I'm wrong, it's okay. I'm just going to learn. It's not a big deal.
That's what clinicals are about,
That's what it's
truly.
about. Yeah. And so,
Mhm.
but you're right. That's a good way to put it because I hope that everyone has that moment where you get out of the imposter syndrome and move into a little bit of confidence. But in medicine, it's hard because we're never going to know everything. And you also have that balance of, I don't know everything and I need to know when to ask.
Exactly.
And that's forever. But
Right.
that's okay. What was your
I
favorite rotation?
favorite rotation. Excluding electives,
Okay.
ER.
Okay.
You hear about it as a didactic student, like, oh my gosh, you can suture, you can intubate, you can do all these things
Yeah.
if the site lets you. And that freaks you out. I remember looking at people's Instagrams and seeing what they had done in the past and thinking, like we said, how are you letting this 25-year-old girl do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Something about the ER, it gave me confidence. I don't know
Yeah.
what it was. I thought I was either going to sink or swim. And again, depends on the kind of person you are. But
Yeah.
if the opportunity presented itself, I would just jump in.
Mm-hmm.
The other advice I tell people is always just be a yes woman, man, be a yes person because
100%.
that's how you learn.
Yep.
And you can be scared. You can have no idea what you're doing. All of these preceptors don't expect you to know anything. And just putting yourself in a situation to gain any form of knowledge is the only way to
Mm-hmm.
learn, I think.
Yes,
Um,
I agree with that. And I would say be a yes person, even not just to your preceptor, but to anybody there.
anyone.
Don't feel like a task or something is below you. If somebody grabs you and says, "Hey, do you want to come do this?" Just do it. Like,
Yes,
learn from everyone.
that's great advice. I
Yeah.
even am thinking about that now on my first day of work. I
Hmm.
am learning everyone's role. It's
Yeah.
not just my role that's important, it's how you all function as a team. I was shadowing the medical assistants today. I was learning how they do their charts, how they set up the
Very
room.
important.
I think it's very, very important to just keep your mind open. I once had a physician tell me, always remain curious. And I've kept that with me because it's so simple, but the words just really got to my heart because it's true. We
Yeah.
are in this field because we're always learning. We're never at a point where we're not going to keep studying, no matter what that means, whether it's a textbook, whether it's a case. So,
Hmm.
always remaining curious and open is another piece of advice I like to share.
Yeah, I agree with that too. That's great advice. What was your least favorite rotation?
My least favorite, I really did enjoy most of them, not because of what it was, but my OBGYN rotation, it was just OB triage. So I think if I
Oh,
had GYN
that's
mixed
interesting. Yeah.
in, I would have liked it a bit more. So it was 3 shifts a week and they were 12-hour shifts. So I just think the way it was set up wasn't my favorite. I didn't get to do as much. It was more kind of someone coming in, okay, let me put them in a room.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you'll have rotations where you don't do as much as others, and that's okay. You get to learn that aspect of it too. And then my psych rotation, a lot of it was online. So that was tough because I'm such a person that likes to interact and see faces. That was a little bit tougher for me. It wasn't even Zoom, it was just audio. So I guess for that, those two were on the lower end, but I don't even like to say they were my least favorite because I really did just love clinical year as
Yeah.
a unit.
Yeah, clinicals were fun. When everything just comes together and you get to apply your knowledge and all of that. How were boards? How was pants? How'd you feel going into it since you're
I
fresh
was,
and all
whew,
of that?
yeah, I can block that, unblock all of that.
Yeah.
I was nervous. So I was someone that I'm not even going to say struggle, but has to study a lot more than, let's say, other people in my class or just other people in general. I have to repeat a lot of things. I'm an auditory learner, so I would go through study guides, read them out loud. I was feeling better after EORs because I think
Okay.
it kind of gives you a little bit of reassurance. Okay, if I'm passing these, then maybe I'll be okay. Maybe I'll come out
Hmm.
on the other end. My school didn't let us take the pants until about a month after graduation. So I signed up for the first slot I
Yeah.
could. So, first week of January, I had about 3, 4 weeks to really study. And for me, I'm happy I did that because I have classmates that waited. Some still haven't taken it. They're
Yeah.
taking it in February and they're kind of like, oh, I wish I was in your shoes. I wish I just took it. Because right out of school, you have the most knowledge, and the more you wait, things can kind of fall out of an
Yeah.
ear and out the other. So I would wake up when I would wake up, study for a couple hours, maybe go for a walk, exercise, break up the day. And I'm a huge morning person, so I wouldn't study into the night at all. And I just dedicated those 3 weeks to that, and it worked out for me in the end.
Yeah. Congrats. That's
Thank you.
a huge thing to have behind you. I'm doing a recertification right now.
Oh, how's that going?
It's okay. I'm doing the pilot program where we just have questions each quarter to answer that are open book. Being in dermatology for almost 10 years and it's only 4% of boards, I wasn't too excited to take like the whole thing again. So
Yes.
it's been nice in that sense, but it's still pretty tough. The questions are not easy and some of them are very long. You get 5 minutes per question, but they'll be like a whole scenario crazy thing. I've been putting this quarter off. Granted, it's still January, but I like to sit down and just do all my questions at once. Some people are like, I'll do one a
Yes.
day. And I'm like, no, no, no. We're just
Go.
gonna be done.
Rip the band-aid.
Having that every 10 years isn't too terrible. So
I agree.
yeah.
That's probably what I will choose to do as well.
Yeah, yeah, especially if you stay in specialty. So you had ENT experience before PA school.
Yes.
Going in, were you like, I'm doing ENT, or did that kind of just creep up on you? What was your job search like?
I always kept ENT in the back of my mind, but I went into school, this is another advice, open-minded.
Yeah.
A lot of my classmates went in, I'm doing this. I was a medical assistant in this. I was this. Half of them, I'll tell you right now, are not going into what they said initially. So I knew I always loved it. So I kind of wanted to challenge myself. Okay, let's see if there's another specialty I could love just as much or more. I really loved orthopedics. So I ended up choosing ortho and ENT as my two electives. And it made me realize how much I love ENT because when I was in the ortho elective, I kept thinking about it. I was like, oh man, because when someone would come into the ER with dizziness or nosebleed, I was immediately intrigued. So I really tried to listen to that excitement because you're spending a lot of your time at work. So it should be something that you're passionate about and you're thinking about. I am someone that kind of starts things really, really early. I knew I wanted to move from my hometown and just start fresh, live in a new city. So I started the job search rather early. I think I started at the beginning of clinicals, which is very early. I don't want that to scare anybody.
Yeah.
I'm not like the rest of my classmates, but just looking on LinkedIn, looking on Indeed, updating my resume as I was going through the rotations of logging, oh, on my internal medicine, I drew an ABG, I
Yeah.
listened to this, I looked at this x-ray. So just kept up with the skills that I was acquiring over the year and then started probably interviewing I would say rotation 6 out of the 9 that I had. And then I decided where I was going to end up during my last rotation. So, only for my circumstance, like I said, because I wanted to move, I started that early.
Yeah.
Plenty of classmates went on a trip, took the pants. Now they're just looking for jobs. Either way, I think is great. You're going to find success. But that was my process.
Would you say you had trouble finding what you wanted?
No,
Okay.
which I think I'm very lucky in that sense, but I also knew what I wanted, if
Okay.
that makes sense. So some people say,
Yeah.
oh, I know I want to be in the hospital, or I know I want to be in the clinic, but maybe they don't know the specialty, or vice versa. I narrowed my search for ENT clinic based in this area
Okay.
and started from there. But the great thing about these things like Indeed and LinkedIn, you can just apply and see if anything lands.
Were you able to spend time there to make sure it was a good fit? I always recommend before any
I
job.
was gonna say, I definitely recommend that if it's an option. I had 3 different interviews, and some were phone calls, some were Zooms, and then they kind of added on, "Oh, let's meet this doctor this time around, let's meet this PA." So the one that I really liked, they ended up asking me to come shadow the office. I think I shadowed it was either 2 or 3 times. So I was able to see the flow of the office, meet everyone, see if my personality fit with them, see how the patients are. That is something that's really important. Look good on paper and be totally different in person or vice versa.
What's your schedule like? What are you going to be doing?
Yes. My schedule is Monday through Friday in the clinic, and it's from 8 to 4:30, and on Fridays it's 8 to 3:30. So really nice. Like I said before, morning person, so for me that's great. Get up at around 6:30, make my coffee, have my morning, and we get a full hour lunch break, which I thought was awesome. There's a little lake right by the office, so a lot of us go walk around the lake during lunch. Little things like that that
Yeah.
just add perks to the day. I love being outside. I'm going to be seeing patients on my own schedule. So they want us seeing, I think they said like 20 or so patients at the end of the year. They ease
Yeah.
you in, which was something that was very important to me. During my interviews, I asked, what's the training process like? Do you expect us to just start, or is someone going to handhold a bit?
Yeah.
What's the process? I'll be looking in ears, noses, throats, doing scopes through the nose, and helping in procedures in office. So I'm just really excited for all of that. People like to say the ENT is the professional booger pickers, as gross as that sounds, but it's kind of correct.
Oh, that's funny. So I live in
Yeah.
Georgia. I've had multiple patients now refer to ENTs as the snout doctor.
The snout doctor. I've never heard that.
Yeah, the
That's
first
awesome.
time one of them said to me, I was like, "What is he talking about?" We were talking about
Snout.
something, and I was looking at something. He was like, "Well, the snout doctor sent me the snout doctor," and I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" I have
Oh
no.
my
I
god.
was like, "What are you talking?" He's like, "You know the snout doctor," and I was like, "Oh, okay. The
I gotta start
ENT
using that.
sent you here, like."
The snout
The
doctor.
snout doctor. And since then, every once in a while, a patient will throw that out, and I'm just like, I've never
Words.
heard the official booger picker. That's a good one.
Yep.
It's funny because patients will want me to look in their nose, and I'm like, I don't even have the tools to do that here. I'm so like, I'll shine my
Go to the
light up
snout doctor.
there. I'll get you to who you need, but like, I cannot help you. And then I like try to shine my dermatoscope up there, which is just like a magnifying glass, and they start breathing, and it fogs up, and I'm just like,
And you're like, this is not working.
yeah, I'm not helpful in this situation. I have a special place in my heart for ENT doctors. My dad had throat cancer. And so he spent a lot of time at the ENT, and we had a great experience with multiple ENTs here who helped through that process of diagnosing and treating and all of that. In PA school, I realized actually, this sounds terrible, but it's true. I was with a general surgeon who did breast cancer cases. And I was like, I like the process of walking through that with a patient and just being there for them in that hard time. And so I
Yep.
really wanted to do that. I wanted to do general surgery. But what I found after that rotation, and even now in derm, you're going to have that same experience.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I'm sure you'll see some tough cases and
Yes.
hopefully some not so tough ones too. Cleaning out some
Yes.
boogers, cleaning out some
Yeah,
earwax, all
exactly.
that fun stuff too. Will you see kids?
I don't believe we will, but kids
Okay.
do come to the office, so There was a little ones running around today at least. Not as many, but yes, kids
Okay.
are involved.
I know a
Yeah.
lot of our ENTs around here do see both peds
Yes.
and adult patients.
Yes.
That's so exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you exhausted?
I'm exhausted. And I didn't do much today. It wasn't really seeing patients or anything like that, but
Yeah.
just going from studying, being in pajamas and just hanging around, moving, which takes a lot of
A
energy,
lot of stuff. Yeah.
just having to wake up and be on for a full day. It's been a minute
I
since
always say
surgery.
it took me 6 months. And
Six
in those
months.
first 6 months, I was just tired. I would come home, and if I sat on the couch, I didn't get up. Like,
Did not move.
yeah, like dinner wasn't happening. Like, nothing was
Yep.
happening if I sat down. I think
I'm
it was
already
more my brain was tired than anything else.
It's a muscle too.
Yeah.
I'm already thinking I have to pack my lunch for tomorrow. I was like, "Oh man, I have to do that." The little thing.
After 6 months, I felt better. I felt like, okay, like I'm getting the hang of it, like got my feet under me. Like I was seeing patients on my own at that point, and
Okay.
it just felt like I had a little more energy for other stuff outside of just trying
That's
to
good to know.
make it through. So maybe you'll adjust a
Yes.
little quicker. But yeah, it's a lot. And the interesting thing is being in a specialty, maybe everywhere, but I've only ever done a specialty. We see a lot of the same things over and over. And so I would feel really comfortable with one thing. Like I would get really comfortable with treating rosacea or doing skin checks. And then I would get this onslaught of like psoriasis patients. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, I need to learn more about psoriasis. I don't feel comfortable with this. So it's kind of, you just gain familiarity and get,
Bouts of confidence in
yeah,
certain
like more confidence
things.
as you go. And stuff just seems to like come in waves. I'll see something for a month or two and then not see it for a year, and then it just pops back up. Interesting to work in medicine.
Yes. I
Yeah.
even bought a little book that it's called ENT Secrets because sure I worked in it, but it was many moons
Oh
ago and I have
yeah.
to refresh a bit. I still have my notebook. I'm treating it as if it's a clinical rotation. I'm taking notes on all the patients, gonna go
Yeah.
home and look things up
Study.
that I
Yep.
don't know. And it's like a prolonged clinical rotation.
It is. Yeah. I considered it like a residency. So even though we don't have it,
Yes.
that was my thing. Those first few years, I like didn't do a residency, but I'm treating this as it's my own
Yes.
self created residency where I want to learn a
Another way to
lot and
look
went
at
to a
it.
lot of conferences and did a lot of studying too. So I'm excited to follow your journey. Tell us about your TikTok and Instagram. Is
Yeah.
that just kind of like creative?
I always enjoyed taking pictures, creating videos, and back to when I was injured in college and had that year off, on my dance team in school, they had me run the Instagram. So it kind of fueled my passions in a different way because, oh, okay, I can't dance, but I can record and make videos. And so that's kind of where it started. And I wanted to create the platform just to be advice for anybody that could be going through the same thing as me. And I've loved where it's developed. I've had the opportunity to advise the pre-PA club at my PA school and at other schools in Florida. And I just wish I had someone that was able to answer questions in that kind of way. I think social media and technology has developed so well that we're able to do that now. And I wanted to tell you, Savannah, I had your book pre-PA student. And it's just, this is another full circle moment for me getting to talk to you because I was on a flight and I bought your book. I read the whole thing front to back. I was like, this is it. I'm ready. I'm prepared. You prepared me for
Oh
interviews. You did.
gosh. Oh my gosh. That's so funny. It's so funny. I was at a drug dinner the other night and somebody told me the same thing. They're like, oh, like I read your book. And I was like, oh,
Yep.
small world. Welcome
Mhm.
to, they're
Yes.
like working in town as a derm PA. And I was like, that's awesome. That's funny.
So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I take no credit. I feel like whenever I talk to people applying, I'm like, y'all are such great applicants. You don't need me. Like, you would be fine without me. I promise.
It was
But
great.
I do appreciate that.
Of
I like hearing
course.
those stories that my work is not completely in vain. It's so fun because now when you pop up on my For You page, I'm gonna be like, I know her.
We
Yes,
talked.
we talked. It is nice to connect. I love social media for what it is and like getting to learn things and see other people, but I also really like getting to actually connect. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me,
Thank you for having
yeah,
me.